Bonjour. So I was missing for a few days, for the whole week indeed, and that was due to two factors. One was that I was very busy, and the second, a more important one, was that I think we have covered that most of the material that I wanted to cover in the in this course for this school year. So that is why I took it. I didn't feel so guilty not giving you work, not making new videos. In today's video, which is not to do with any specific chapter, I will just go quickly through, list all the things we have learned in this course this year, and at the end of the video I will indicate what we will do in the next 20 odd days that remain, and also I will suggest some, or rather one thing that you can learn on your own which will be very useful to you for all mathematical pursuits. So when we started, one of you informed me that last year, because it was a COVID year, you had two teachers for maths, and one of them taught you geometry and the other taught you algebra, and there were some shortcomings in the algebra. You did that very fast, you didn't do it very well. So that is why, so in the beginning, the first few weeks, we did the first 7 chapters of the Transmath Classe de Quatrième book. Reconnaître un multiple ou un diviseur. Here you learned what is division Euclidean, whole number plus remainder, multiple diviseur de nombre, critère de divisibilité, things like, is 1000 divisible by 3? No, it isn't. Is it divisible by 4? Yes, it is. That sort of thing. Then multiplier, diviser des nombres relatifs. Multiplication de deux nombres relatifs, division de deux nombres relatifs. What do we mean by this? Let's see what we mean by this. We can go to the page 24 is a chapter. So that is deux nombres relatifs, meaning numbers that are positive or negative. So if they have two numbers with the same sign, then you get a positive number when you multiply them. If they have different sign, then you get a negative number. Then we talked about utiliser la distributivité. Here basically what we learned was to do factorization and then reduction. Expression littérale, that was the first introduction of that. That means using letters instead of actual numbers. The letters represent numbers. Then we came to utiliser les nombres rationnels, rationnels rather, where we defined what they were, to compare them, add and subtract them. And then we came to a very interesting chapter. I'm rather proud of what we did here, was multiplier, diviser des quotients. That means quotient here means fractions, how to multiply and divide fractions. I showed you in a very nice way what is meant by dividing a fraction and how to do it. I think I used to call it I had a name for it, something box. You multiply it by something box, so you should get that result. So what is inside the box? And then finally we had these two chapters, comprendre la notation puissance. Here we talked about numbers that have powers, 10 to the power this, or 6 to the power 3. If you have 6 to the power 3 plus 6 to the power 3, what do you write? If it's 6 to the power 3 into 6 to the power 4, what's the total? And then we spoke about powers of 10 and the prefixes. You remember micro, mini, mega, tera, all of those. Then we came to modéliser une situation, and I'm sure you don't remember what this is. It was very simply, if you're given a problem in words, how to put it into an equation or mathematical form. And then it showed you how to résoudre une équation du premier degré. What is a équation du premier degré? It means an equation that has no higher power of the unknown. That means 2x plus 3 is 2x plus 3 is equal to say 16 is an equation of is a first degree equation. If you have a square of an unknown, then it becomes a second degree equation. If you have a cube of an unknown, then it becomes a third degree equation. So the example of a second degree equation will be 2x squared plus 3x is equal to 12. There, remember, there's an x squared. Example of a first degree equation again would be something like 4x plus 3 is equal to 12. There is no x squared in that equation. Okay, so once we finished this book, we moved on to the actual book for this course. And here we went in slightly funny order, which the book recommends. So we started the effectuer des calculs numériques, règle de calcul sur les puissances. Oh, this is where we did that calculations of numbers with powers. Then we learned notation scientifique. You learned that, scientific and engineering notation. I taught you engineering also, even though that's not there in the book. Then priorité opératoire, that's a fancy word for saying which operator comes before which operator. You know it as Bodmash or Podmas. Then after that we went straight to this chapter, étudier l'effet d'un agrandissement réduction. This was a geometry chapter. If you have a figure, you want to enlarge it, you have a factor of k, then what happens to the areas, what happens to the lengths, what happens to the angles, what happens to the volumes. We did that. Then we came back to chapter 4, which was calculer, interpréter des caractéristiques d'une série statistique. Remember what this was? This was when we did moyenne et médiane. We had we looked at, these are the most simple statistical operations. So you got a little bit of an introduction into statistics. Then we went on to chapter 2. Utiliser le calcul littéral pour résoudre ou démontrer. So calcul littéral, here we went into a little bit more detail. We learnt of the identité remarquable. You know what those are? X plus y au carré est égal à x carré plus 2xy plus y carré, and the other two. Then résolution algébrique d'une équation du premier degré. This we did, solving an equation of the first degree. Then we did the inéquation du premier degré à un inconnu. So if x is less than, greater than this, and you remember that. Okay. Then after that we came to chapter 3, découvrir et utiliser les nombres premiers. What are nombres premiers? Prime numbers which don't have a, which can be only be divided by themselves and 1. Then we came to fraction irréductible, where they are relative primes that you cannot divide one from the other. The numerator and denominator don't have any common divisors, dividers in French, diviseur. Then we came to this long sequence of 3 chapters, comprendre et utiliser la notion de fonction. Chapter 6, what is meant by a function. I explained to you like a converter, something goes in, something else comes out based on a rule that is inside the box. Okay, then we looked at relier proportionnalité, a fonction linéaire. So we figured out what a fonction linéaire was. That means Ix est égal à B. So there you got, fonction, representation graphique d'une fonction linéaire is a straight line which goes through the origin. And here I also started giving you to draw graphs of functions that were not linear. So you had graphs which went up and like that. I gave you third degree equations to graph, and you did that. Then we came to connaître les fonctions affines. This is a function affine is a general case, whereas fonction linéaire is a specific case of a fonction affine. Here you had it could be represented graphically by a straight line that did not pass through the origin. So we did these 6, 7, 8 chapters in sequence, and this particular year, and that's one of the reasons I like teaching it, is this class de troisième, is that you get introduced to so many new concepts of maths. I doubt that, of course, in later years you learn a lot more of maths, but in any 1 year you will not be introduced to so many new concepts. I mean, we saw here we had the Gray inequation, we had nombre premier, we had statistics, and then we had all these things with functions, which is a very, very important part of mathematics. And then we jump to Theorem de Thales, again to geometry, Homothétie, le Theorem de Thales, la réciproque du Theorem de Thales. And then we came to chapter 13, connaître et utiliser les triangles semblables, what they are, how to use them. And then I put this Theorem de Thales and triangle semblable together to show to you the usefulness of trigonometry, what trigonometry is and how it can be used. And we spent a lot of time on trigonometry. So you see, trigonometry is also one of the important concepts you were introduced to in this book and in this year. And then finally we came to what we have just finished, and I will not go into that in any detail, was probabilities. We spent a month on this, mainly because I took about 10 days off, but this was again very important. We finished last with the Monty Hall problem, which is so against our natural sense of correctness that it again showed how maths is useful to make sure that you don't make mistakes. So this is where we are. If you look in this book, we have not done this chapter, faire le point sur la proportionnalité. Basically, it is a continuation of chapter 7, relier proportionnalité et fonction linéaire. And this is really not a very important chapter. You can read it on your own. It has to do with percentages and linear functions. You will see that the problems in this chapter are I hope, very, very simple for you, and you will understand why I skipped this. There is one chapter that I skipped, which I didn't really want to skip, but I skipped that because it's a little difficult to teach in the way I'm teaching, asynchronous online. Modéliser une situation spatiale. So here it was a lot of drawing, three-dimensional drawings and all, and this is, according to me, or at least for me, best taught in a classroom situation. So this is the only chapter we lost out on by not being in a classroom. You do realize what we gained by not being in a classroom. I am sure we wouldn't have covered so much material in so much depth had I been teaching 5 periods a week and giving you 2 days to do homework. It just so happens that the way my working day is, it worked out good that I gave you work every single day on most days, and that you were able to do it. So this is the second chapter. I wish we had done this, but okay, that's we can put that down to we can blame COVID for that. So this is one chapter 9, chapter 12, and the last chapter that we didn't do, which we are not actually equipped to do, is étudier la logique algorithmique d'un programme. So this introduces you to computer programs and algorithms. Algorithms is a fancy word for saying steps in a computer program to achieve one specific goal. Now, I have taught algorithms in class before, but not programming, because programming involves resources that we don't have in our school, the time or the thing. I'll just show you chapter 15, and here they use a programming language which I think is called Scratch. So they use that for doing programming and learning the basics of computer programming. I urge you, and I'm sure you will, learn programming in future years if you already aren't dabbling in it in one way or another. Okay, so so essentially we have completed the course, and now over the next 20 days or so, I will teach you 2 topics. And these two topics are the first one is it'll be for it'll have two reasons. I'll have two reasons for teaching it to you. The first is this is the topic system of equations of the first degree. So solving system of equations. What is meant by system of equations? It means multiple equations with multiple unknowns. So let me give you an example. If I give you x plus y is equal to 23, can you solve it? You can find value of x plus and a value of y which will give you 23, but those will not be the only values of y. You could say 10 and 13, 9 and 14. But what if I asked you to solve it? I wanted exact values. There aren't any exact values. There are an infinite number of values of x and y, combinations of x and y, which will satisfy this equation. So that is why if I give you two equations, both of which have the same x and the same y, then you will get only one combination of x and y which will satisfy both equations. So this is known as a system of equations, and this particular example is a system of equations with two unknowns. So two equations, two unknowns. I could have had three equations with three unknowns, and we will do that in the next few days. So why do I say that the first degree? This first degree because x to the power 1 is here. There is no x squared, there is no y squared. Once you have that, you go into the second degree. So the first, I said there are two reasons for teaching you this. One of them is of course to learn to solve them, and secondly I will show you, which I have always insisted on, that we should do things systematically, and that reduces the chances of error, and it puts less strain on your brain and thinking, which of course also reduces the chances of errors. So I will teach you how to solve equations like this in 2 or 3 different ways, and then you will learn why I recommend only one of them, because it is simple, it is systematic, and you don't have to use your brain. You just have to do it systematically. You don't have to think about it. Just solve it using a particular process. So this is the first topic we will do. Then if we have time, I will teach you how to solve a second degree equation. What is a second degree equation? I told you this is first degree. What is a second degree equation? So this is a first degree equation. If I say 3x plus 6 is equal to 64, one equation, one unknown. You can say 3x is equal to 64 minus 6, 3x is equal to 58, x is equal to 58 over 3. So x is equal to 19.33. So this is how you solve a equation of the first degree with one unknown. So a second degree equation looks something like this. So if I say 2x squared plus 3x is equal to 16, how will you solve this? Now you may not remember, but you did learn to solve some of them by factorizing them. So if you took this whole thing and you factorized it and you got x plus a, where something is a, and x into x plus b is equal to 0, then you can say either this whole thing is 0 or this whole thing is 0, because 0 into anything is 0. So then you can say either x is equal to minus a, because if x is equal to minus a, this is 0, or x is equal to minus b, which is again, then this is 0, so again this is 0. So the solutions are x is equal to minus a or x is equal to minus b. So we will learn how to turn that any second degree equation with one unknown into something like that, and then be able to figure this out very simply. So I hope to do these two topics in the next 20 days, whatever we have remaining. And if I can't, doesn't matter if we can't do it, because this is not really part of the course. Okay. And the third thing I want to learn on your own is how to learn to use a spreadsheet. Now what is a spreadsheet? A spreadsheet is a type of computer program which deals with numbers. You all probably already know this. Its most common example is Excel. It's a program from Microsoft company. It is not free, though most of us have pirated copies on the computer. And there's a free one also called Google Sheets. So these are all examples of spreadsheets. Excel and Google Sheets are two examples of computer programs which are called spreadsheets. In French, this is called tableur. I should write it down. And indeed, the book that we just finished, often they ask you to do problems using the tableur, and I have always skipped those. If you have noticed them, you will see that I'm trying to find one place where they talk about using a tableur for something. Here we are. Utiliser le tableur pour gérer des pourcentages d'évolution. So this is on this chapter which we didn't do. Faire le point sur la proportionnalité. But here you can see this is a picture of a spreadsheet. Also this is a picture of a spreadsheet. And in the early days when computers were first invented, they were used by people who were enthusiasts, who were hobbyists. And then when the first spreadsheet program came out, computers really took off because everybody in the business world started buying computers to do calculations, and mainly financial calculations, but this a spreadsheet deals with all sorts of numbers, not really to do with finance. You can do engineering, you can solve maths problems and things like that. Okay, so there is no in-video problem for this. I hope to have a video for system of equations in the next 1 or 2 days. Oh yes, what I meant about Excel and spreadsheets is that the most important thing you can do on a computer is, of course, first of all, learn to touch type. That means type without looking. And there are many computer programs that help you to do that. And then second is to learn to use a word processor and a spreadsheet. A word processor you know as Microsoft Word or Google Docs. And the next thing is to learn to use a spreadsheet like Google Sheets or Excel. There are many online resources which will teach you. There are free teaching courses which will teach you all of these. And I would suggest that you do so because it will make a lot of difference. It is one of the most important things you can do to help you in real life in terms of computer usage. Maybe you could set aside an hour in the holidays to learn it. Think about it. It'll be time much better spent than playing video games or doing whatever pastime you're used to. Okay, I'll stop here.